The final battle did not begin at Earth. It began in the heart of the Zephyrian Empire, 23 light-years from humanity's homeworld. Admiral Susan Cross led a fleet of 30 human ships in the deepest strike mission ever attempted. Their target was not just military bases or supply convoys. They were heading directly for the Imperial capital itself. "All ships report ready," her tactical officer announced. Susan looked at the star charts one more time. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. Her fleet was outnumbered 50-1. By conventional military logic, this mission was suicide. But humans had stopped using conventional logic months ago. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "This is Admiral Cross. Today we show the galaxy that no empire is too big to fall, no tyrant is too strong to defeat. Earth sends its greetings to the Zephyrian homeworld." The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly above the Imperial capital. Alarm screamed across a planet that had never known the touch of war. For 1,000 years, the Zephyrian homeworld had been protected by distance and the power of their fleets. Now enemy ships hung in their sky like a terrible promise. Captain Rachel Turner, commanding the UES Vengeance, opened fire on the orbital defense stations. The human weapons had been modified based on intelligence gathered during months of fighting. They cut through alien shields like knives through paper. "Sir, we are receiving communications from the planet's surface," her communications officer reported. "The Imperial government wants to negotiate." Rachel smiled grimly. "Tell them negotiations are over. Today they learn what it feels like to have strangers threaten their home." On the planet below, panic spread through the Zephyrian population. These were beings who had grown up believing their empire was invincible. Their fleets conquered other worlds, but their world was never threatened. Now they watched human ships destroy their defenses with casual efficiency. Meanwhile, at Earth, High Commander Vextar faced his own crisis. The human attack on the capital had forced him to make an impossible choice. He could continue his assault on Earth, or he could rush back to defend his home world. He chose his home world. "All ships prepare for immediate departure," he ordered. "We return to Zephyrian space at maximum speed." Dr. Carter, now free but serving as an unofficial ambassador, watched the alien fleet prepare to leave. "Commander Vextar, this is exactly what the humans wanted. They have divided your forces and forced you to fight on multiple fronts." Vextar turned to face the human scientist. "Dr. Carter, I have underestimated your species from the beginning, but even humans cannot fight the entire empire." "Perhaps not," Dr. Carter replied, "but we can make the empire decide that conquering us costs more than we are worth." As the Zephyrian fleet departed Earth, General Frank Stone activated the final phase of the Nightfall project. Hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system came online. Deep strike missiles launched from secret bases on distant moons. But the most important launch came from Earth itself. Engineer Katie Walsh had spent 6 months working on humanity's most ambitious project. The weapon she had designed was not meant to destroy ships or planets. It was meant to destroy the idea that the Zephyrian Empire was invincible. "Deep Strike 7 is away," she reported to General Stone. "Target is the Imperial Palace. Impact in 17 hours. The missile carried no explosive warhead. Instead, it carried a message, a broadcast that would be transmitted across the entire Zephyrian communication network at the moment of impact. While the fleets battled in space, Marine Sergeant John Kelly led ground forces in a different kind of assault. His target was not territory or resources. He was after something more valuable, prisoners who could provide intelligence about Imperial operations. "Remember," he told his troops as they prepared to board a damaged Zephyrian command ship, "we need information about their command structure, their logistics, their weaknesses. Every piece of data we gather could save human lives." The boarding you. Action was brutal. Zephyrian Marines fought with the desperation of beings who knew their empire was under threat. But human troops fought with the cold determination of soldiers who had already accepted death. Kelly himself led the assault on the ship's command center. The alien officers tried to destroy their databanks rather than let them fall into human hands. But Kelly's team moved too quickly. "Got it," reported his communications specialist. "Complete tactical database, fleet positions, supply schedules, even personal files on their command staff. The intelligence proved invaluable. Within hours, Earth knew the location of every major Zephyrian fleet, the schedule for all supply convoys, and the identity of key Imperial leaders. But the most important discovery was psychological. The Zephyrians were terrified. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding a reconnaissance squadron, led strikes against targets identified in the captured data. His ships appeared without warning at Imperial supply bases, destroyed what they could, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. "This is different from our earlier raids," he told his crew after destroying a fuel depot. Before, the aliens fought back with confidence. Now they are scared. They know their empire is vulnerable. The fear was spreading faster than the military defeats. Across the galaxy, species that had lived under Zephyrian rule for centuries began to question Imperial power. If humans could strike at the capital itself, perhaps the empire was not as strong as it claimed. On the former mining world of Kepler 442b, enslaved Altarians rose in open rebellion. They had watched human broadcasts showing the attack on the Imperial capital. If a single species could threaten the Empire's heart, perhaps freedom was possible. Similar uprisings erupted on dozens of worlds. The Zephyrian military found itself fighting brushfire wars across half the galaxy, while still trying to deal with the human threat. High Commander Vextar reached his home world to find the human fleet gone, but the damage done. Admiral Cross had withdrawn after destroying the orbital defenses, but her message was clear. The Empire's most protected world was not safe from human attack. Worse, the psychological impact was devastating. Video of human ships attacking the capital had spread throughout the Empire. Subject species were beginning to believe that resistance was possible. "Sir, we have reports of rebellion on 47 worlds," his intelligence officer reported. "Local governors are requesting immediate military assistance." "How many ships do we have available?" Vexitar asked. "Perhaps 200 combat-effective vessels, but they are scattered across 12 star systems." Vexitar realized the truth. The Empire no longer had enough ships to maintain control. The human strategy had worked. By forcing the Zephyrians to fight everywhere at once, humanity had stretched Imperial forces beyond their breaking point. The final confrontation came not in space, but in a communication center on the Zephyrian capital. Katie Walsh's Deep Strike missile had delivered its message perfectly, broadcasting on every frequency used by the Imperial government. The message was simple, recorded by Commander Lisa Hayes in the Defense Command Center on Earth. "People of the galaxy," she said, "for 1,000 years you have lived under Zephyrian rule because you believed resistance was impossible. Today, humanity has proven that no empire is too strong to challenge." The broadcast showed scenes from the human resistance, ships fighting against impossible odds, soldiers who chose death over surrender, a species that refused to kneel even when facing extinction. "The choice is yours," Lisa continued. "You can continue to serve an empire that sees you as property, or you can stand up and demand your freedom. Humanity will support any species that chooses to resist oppression." Dr. Carter, serving as Earth's representative in the negotiations that followed, met with Zephyrian leaders in a damaged conference room on their capital world. "What do you want?" asked Imperial Chancellor Mordak, the highest-ranking official to survive the political chaos. "We want what every species wants," Dr. Carter replied. "The right to exist on our own terms, the right to make our own choices, the right to be free." "And if we refuse?" Dr. Carter gestured toward the window, where the wreckage of orbital defense platforms still glowed in the planet's sky. "Then this war continues until one of our species is extinct. But I should warn you, Chancellor, humans have decided that extinction is preferable to slavery. Have the Zephyrians made the same choice?" The negotiations lasted for days. In the end, the Zephyrians agreed to terms that would have seemed impossible months earlier. The Empire would release all conquered species that chose independence. Imperial fleets would be reduced to defensive levels only. Most importantly, the Zephyrians would never again expand through conquest. The Treaty of Sol was signed on Earth, with representatives from dozens of species attending. For the first time in galactic history, an empire had been forced to abandon conquest not through military defeat, but through the realization that some victories cost more than they are worth. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, watching the last Zephyrian ships leave the solar system. The war was over. Humanity had won not by destroying their enemies, but by proving that the price of conquest could be made unacceptably high. "Sir," asked his communications officer, "what should we transmit to the departing fleet?" Jake thought for a moment. 3 months of silence had started this war. Perhaps it was time. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars through the main screen of the UES horizon. The ship was humanity's newest exploration vessel, built to test their first faster-than-light drive. Jake had been chosen to lead this mission because of his calm nature and quick thinking. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady blue eyes that never seemed to panic, no matter what happened. "Drive systems are ready, Captain," called out Dr. Lisa Parker from her science station. Lisa was the ship's chief science officer, a brilliant woman who had helped design the new jump drive. She wore her brown hair in a simple ponytail and had spent the last 5 years working on this technology. Today was the day they would finally test it in deep space. "All stations report ready," said Colonel Ryan Clark from the tactical station. Ryan was their military advisor, a strong man with short black hair who had served in Earth's space defense forces for 20 years. He was here to make sure they stayed safe during their test flights. Amy Sullivan looked up from her communications desk. She was young, maybe 25, with red hair and green eyes. Amy was the best communication specialist Earth had ever trained. "All frequencies are clear, Captain. No other ships in the area." Jake nodded and looked around the bridge. His crew of 200 people had trained for this moment for 3 years. They were about to make the longest jump any human had ever attempted. The plan was simple. Jump. Out, look around, then jump back to Earth. "Begin jump sequence," Jake ordered. Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Jump drive charging, 30 seconds to jump." The ship hummed with energy. Jake could feel the vibration in his chair. This was it. Humanity was about to take its biggest step into the galaxy. 10 seconds, Lisa announced. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, jump. The stars outside disappeared in a flash of white light. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the light faded, and new stars appeared on the screen. "Jump complete," Lisa said, but her voice sounded worried. She was looking at her instruments with a frown. "Captain, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Jake asked, keeping his voice calm. "We jumped too far. Much too far. According to these readings, we're about 50,000 light years from Earth." The bridge went silent. That was impossible. Their jump drive was only supposed to take them a few hundred light years away, not halfway across the galaxy. Tony Martinez, the chief engineer, spoke up from his station. "The drive overloaded, sir. Something went wrong with the power coupling. We're lucky the ship didn't blow up." Jake felt his stomach drop, but he kept his face calm. His crew needed to see that he was in control. "How long to fix it?" "Maybe a week if we're lucky," Tony said. "Some of the parts are pretty damaged." "Captain," Amy said suddenly, her voice tight with worry, "I'm picking up movement on long-range sensors. Something big is coming our way." Jake turned to look at the main screen. At first, he saw nothing but stars. Then, slowly, shapes began to appear. Ships. Huge ships, much larger than anything humans had ever built. They were dark and angular, with strange lights running along their hulls. "How many?" Jake asked. Amy checked her instruments. 20 ships, sir. No, wait, 30. They keep coming." Dr. Parker was working at her station, trying to scan the approaching ships. "Captain, these vessels are enormous. The smallest one is twice the size of our ship. The biggest one is like a flying city." Colonel Clark stood up from his chair. "Should we power weapons, sir?" Jake thought for a moment. 30 alien warships against one human exploration vessel. Those were not good odds. "Weapons to stand by. But don't target anything. We don't want to seem hostile." "They're surrounding us," Amy reported. "And, Captain, I'm getting a signal. They want to talk." Jake took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's first contact with alien life. Put it on screen. The main screen changed to show the inside of an alien bridge. The being looking back at them was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. It wore what looked like a military uniform covered in medals and symbols. When it spoke, a computer translated its words into English. "I am Admiral Krex of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said. Its voice was deep and commanding. "You have entered our space without permission. Identify yourselves." Jake stood up and walked closer to the screen. He had trained for this moment, but it still felt strange to be talking to an alien for the first time. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Horizon. We are explorers from Earth. Our jump drive malfunctioned, and we ended up here by accident. We mean no harm." Admiral Krex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Earth? We have never heard of this world. No matter. You will surrender your vessel and submit to the authority of the Zephyrian Empire. This is standard procedure for all new species we encounter." Jake felt his crew watching him. What he said next would determine what happened to all of them. He thought about Earth, about humanity, about everything they had worked for. "Thank you for the welcome, Admiral," Jake said calmly. "But we'll be on our way now. We just need time to repair our drive." The alien looked surprised. Clearly, this was not the response it had expected. "You misunderstand," Admiral Krex said. "This is not a request. You will surrender, or we will take your ship by force." Jake looked at the alien commander for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised everyone, including his own crew. He smiled slightly and said, "We appreciate your concern, but we're fine where we are." Then he turned to Amy and made a cutting motion across his throat. Amy understood immediately and cut the communication link. The bridge was quiet. Everyone was looking at Jake, waiting to see what he would do next. "Sir?" Colonel Clark asked quietly. Jake sat back down in his command chair and looked at his crew. "We're not surrendering," he said simply. "And we're not running away either. We're going to sit right here and fix our ship." "But Captain," Dr. Parker said, "they have 30 warships." "Yes, they do," Jake agreed. "But they don't know anything about us, and I think we should keep it that way." Jake turned to Amy. "No more communications unless I say so. We go dark. Complete silence." Amy nodded and shut down all outgoing communications. The bridge lights dimmed slightly as the ship switched to low power mode. Outside, 30 alien warships waited for an answer that would never come. Inside the Horizon, 200 humans began the strangest battle of their lives. A battle fought, not with weapons or words, but with silence. Admiral Krex stared at the dark screen where the human captain had been just moments before. In his 40 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. Every species the Zephyrian Empire had met either fought back desperately or begged for mercy. These humans had done neither. "Sir?" His communications officer asked, a young Zephyrian with nervous eyes. "Should we try to contact them again?" Krex shook his blue head. "No, we wait. They will break soon enough. Fear always makes them break." But 3 hours passed and the human ship remained silent. It sat there in space, shields up, but weapons not aimed at anything. The ship's lights were dimmed, but it was clearly still active. Krex could see small movements through some of the windows, shadows of people walking around inside. On the Horizon's bridge, Captain Jake Morrison sat quietly in his chair, watching the alien ships on his screen. His crew worked around him with careful, quiet efficiency. No one spoke unless they had to, and when they did, they whispered. Dr. Lisa Parker was bent over her science station, studying readings from the alien vessels. She had learned more about Zephyrian technology in 3 hours than humanity had known, about alien life in all of history. Their ships used plasma weapons and energy shields, but the technology was old, maybe hundreds of years behind what it could be. These aliens had stopped improving because they had never needed to. Tony Martinez was in the engine room with his team, carefully taking apart the damaged jump drive. The work was slow and delicate, but Tony was the best engineer Earth had. If Anyone could fix it, he could. He had also noticed something interesting. The alien ships were scanning them, but their scans were simple, basic. They could tell the human ship had shields and weapons, but they couldn't see much else. Colonel Ryan Clark was studying the alien formation through the tactical sensors. 30 ships arranged in a perfect circle around them, but it was a formation, designed to look impressive, not to fight efficiently. These aliens were used to enemies that either gave up immediately or attacked without thinking. They weren't prepared for an enemy that did neither. Amy Sullivan monitored alien communications. From her station, the computer was slowly learning to translate their language better, and she was hearing interesting things. The alien crews were confused. Some were angry, others were worried. None of them understood what the humans were doing. Lieutenant Kate Williams, the security chief, was quietly moving through the ship, making sure all defensive positions were ready. She was a small woman with short black hair and quick hands. Kate had served in Earth's Marine Corps before joining the Exploration Service. If the aliens tried to board their ship, they would get a very unpleasant surprise. By the end of the first day, Admiral Krex was frustrated. He called a meeting with his senior officers on his flagship, a massive vessel called the Destroyer of Worlds. "Report," Krex ordered, as his officers gathered in the conference room. Commander Vex, his second in command, spoke first. "The human vessel remains inactive, sir. They have made no attempts to communicate or escape." "What do our scans show?" Krex asked. "Very little, sir," replied the science officer. "Their hull is made of some unknown metal alloy. We can detect about 200 life forms aboard, but we cannot see their weapons or technology clearly." Krex drummed his 4 fingers on the table. "And their behavior? What does the psychology department say?" The ship's psychologist, a thin Zephyrian with large eyes, looked nervous. "Sir, this behavior pattern is unlike anything in our databases. Most species either show signs of panic by now or begin aggressive posturing. These humans show neither." "Then what are they showing?" Krex demanded. "Patience, sir, and preparation. Their biosigns suggest they are alert and active, but not afraid. It's as if they're waiting for something." "Waiting for what?" "We don't know, sir." On the second day, Jake called a quiet meeting in the Horizons conference room. His senior officers gathered around the table, speaking in whispers. "Status report," Jake said softly. Tony spoke first. "Drive repairs are going well, Captain. Maybe 4 more days if nothing goes wrong." "Good. Lisa, what have you learned about our new friends?" Dr. Parker consulted her notes. "Their technology is powerful but outdated. They rely on brute force rather than innovation. Also, I don't think they've encountered a species like us before." "What do you mean?" "Every alien species they've met either fights or surrenders quickly. They have procedures for both situations, but no procedure for what we're doing." Colonel Clark leaned forward. "Captain, their formation is defensive, not offensive. They're trying to contain us, not attack us. I think they're as confused as we are." Jake nodded. "Amy, what are their communications telling us?" Amy looked at her notes. "They're getting frustrated, sir. The alien crews don't understand why we're not responding. Some of them are starting to think we might be more dangerous than we look." "Dangerous how?" "They think our silence means we're either very confident or very advanced. Some of them are wondering if we have backup coming." Jake smiled slightly. It was the first smile anyone had seen from him since this started. "Let them wonder. Kate, how are our defenses?" Lieutenant Williams sat up straight. "All security teams are ready, sir. If they try to board us, we can hold them off for a while. But sir, against 30 ships..." "I know," Jake said. "But we're not planning to fight 30 ships. We're planning to not fight at all." By the third day, Admiral Krex was pacing his bridge. The human ship had not moved, had not spoken, had not done anything except sit there. His own crews were getting nervous. In the mess halls, soldiers whispered about the silent ship that showed no fear. "Sir," his communications officer called. "Out. We're receiving a priority message from Imperial Command. Emperor Thaxon himself is asking for a status report." Krex felt his stomach drop. The Emperor wanted to know why one small alien ship was taking so long to deal with. How could he explain that the ship hadn't actually done anything? Tell the Emperor that the situation is complex, Craig said. Sir, tell him we're dealing with an unusual species and require more time to assess the threat level. On the horizon, Jake was reviewing Amy's latest intelligence reports. The alien communications were becoming more interesting by the hour. Fear was spreading through their fleet. Not fear of human weapons or technology, but fear of the unknown. Captain, Amy whispered, I think they're starting to be afraid of us. Good, Jake said quietly. Fear makes people make mistakes, and we need them to make mistakes. Dr. Parker looked up from her science station. Captain, I'm detecting more ships approaching. Long-range sensors show at least 50 more vessels heading our way. Jake felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his expression calm. How long until they arrive? About 6 hours, sir. Jake looked around at his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. 200 humans against 80 alien warships. The odds were getting worse, but Jake had an idea. We stick to the plan, he said quietly. Complete silence. Let them bring 100 ships if they want. The more ships they bring, the more afraid they're becoming. Sir, Colonel Clark said, what if they decide to attack? Jake looked at the tactical display showing the alien ships surrounding them. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, but I don't think they will. They're too curious about what we're planning, and as long as they're curious, they won't attack. As the third day ended, both fleets waited in the darkness of space. The aliens waited for the humans to break their silence. The humans waited for their drive to be repaired. But something else was happening too. Stories were spreading through the Zephyrian fleet about the ship that feared nothing, the species that spoke to admirals like equals, and the silence that was more frightening than any weapon. Emperor Thaxon arrived on the fourth day with the Grand Fleet. His massive command ship, the Eternal Glory, was 3 times larger than any other vessel in the area. It was followed by over 200 more warships, bringing the total alien fleet to almost 300 vessels. The human ship horizon sat in the center of this massive formation like a small island in an ocean of steel. Jake Morrison watched the new arrivals on his main screen without changing expression. His bridge crew remained quiet, but he could see the worry in their eyes. 300 alien warships was more than humanity's entire space fleet back on Earth. Status on the drive repairs? Jake asked softly. Tony Martinez's voice came through the intercom from the engine room. Maybe 2 more days, Captain. We're working as fast as we can, but we have to be careful not to make things worse. Understood. Keep working. Dr. Lisa Parker was studying the readings from the Emperor's ship. Captain, that new vessel is enormous. It's armed with weapons I can barely understand. If they wanted to destroy us, they could do it in seconds. Jake nodded. But they haven't. That tells us something important. What does it tell us, sir? That they want something from us. Information, technology, maybe just answers. Dead people can't give them any of those things. On the Eternal Glory, Emperor Thaxon stood in his throne room looking at images of the human ship. He was old, even for a Zephyrian, with pale blue skin and white hair that showed his centuries of rule. He had conquered 47 different species during his reign, and each one had followed the same pattern. They either fought desperately and lost, or they surrendered quickly to save their lives. These humans were doing neither, and it was making the Emperor nervous. Explain this to me again, Thaxon said to Admiral Krex. They have been silent for 4 days? Yes, Your Majesty. No communications, no hostile actions, no attempts to escape. They simply sit there. And our psychological analysis? The fleet's chief psychologist, an elderly Zephyrian named Dr. Quinn, stepped forward. Your Majesty, this behavior is unprecedented. Every species we have encountered shows predictable responses to overwhelming force. These humans show none of them. Then what do they show? Confidence, Your Majesty. Their biological signs suggest they are alert and prepared, but not afraid. It is as if they believe they are in control of the situation. Emperor Thaxon was quiet for a long moment. Do they have reason to be confident? Hidden weapons? Reinforcements? Our scans show no evidence of advanced weapons, Your Majesty, and no other ships have appeared in the area. Then why are they not afraid? Dr. Quen looked uncomfortable. There are several possibilities, Your Majesty. They may possess technology we cannot detect. They may have allies we are unaware of. Or what? Or they may be so advanced that they consider our entire fleet to be irrelevant. On the horizon, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Nathan Brooks was making his rounds through the ship. Nathan was a calm man with kind eyes who had served on exploration vessels for 15 years. He was checking on the crew's mental health during this strange and stressful time. "How are people holding up?" Jake asked when Nathan visited the bridge. "Better than expected, Captain. The crew trusts you and they understand what we're trying to do, but the stress is building. Some people are having trouble sleeping. Keep monitoring them. If anyone needs to talk, make sure they have someone to listen." "Yes, sir." Meanwhile, Security Chief Kate Williams was quietly preparing the ship's defenses. She had positioned her security teams throughout the vessel and made sure all weapons were ready. Kate didn't think the aliens would try to board them, but she believed in being prepared for anything. In the communications section, Amy Sullivan was doing the most important job of all. She was listening to every alien transmission she could intercept. The computer was getting better at translating their language, and what Amy was hearing was very interesting. "Captain," Amy whispered, "you need to hear this." Jake walked over to her station. Amy played back a recorded conversation. "Between two alien ships. The humans have been silent for 4 days now," one alien voice said. "Command thinks they might be planning something." "Planning what?" another voice replied. "They're just sitting there. That's what makes it scary. They're not acting like any species we've ever seen. What if they're waiting for something we don't know about? You think they have reinforcements coming? Maybe, or maybe they have weapons we can't see. Why else would they be so calm?" Amy stopped the recording. "It's the same on every ship, Captain. They're starting to create stories about us. Some think we have invisible weapons. Others think we're psychic. A few even think we might be gods. Testing them." Jake smiled slightly. "Fear of the unknown. It's more powerful than any weapon we actually have." Ambassador Elena Rodriguez had been quiet during most of the crisis. She was the ship's diplomatic officer, a woman in her 50s, with gray hair and patient eyes. Elena had spent her career preparing for humanity's first contact with aliens, but nothing had prepared her for this situation. "Captain," Elena said, "should I try to establish formal diplomatic contact? Maybe we can negotiate with them." Jake shook his head. "Every word we say gives them information about us. Our silence forces them to imagine what we might be thinking, and their imagination is working in our favor. But surely some communication would be better than none. Would it? Right now they think we might be anything. Gods, advanced beings, creatures with unimaginable technology. The moment we start talking like normal people, that mystery disappears." On the 5th day, something unexpected happened. A group of alien merchant ships approached the area and were turned away by the Zephyrian fleet, but not before the merchants saw the strange sight. Hundreds of warships surrounding one small vessel that showed no fear. The story spread quickly through the galaxy's communication networks. A species so powerful that an entire Imperial fleet couldn't make them surrender. Beings so advanced that they treated the galaxy's greatest military power like children playing with toys. Within hours, the story had reached every civilized world in the sector. News programs discussed the mysterious humans who had appeared from nowhere. Military analysts tried to guess what kind of weapons could make someone so confident against impossible odds. Dr. Lisa Parker was monitoring these broadcasts from her science station. "Captain, we're becoming famous across the galaxy. Every news service is talking about us. What are they saying? Mostly speculation. Some say we must have planet-destroying weapons. Others think we're from another dimension. A few religious groups are claiming we're divine messengers." Jake looked at the tactical display showing the alien fleet around them. "Let them think whatever they want. The more mysterious we are, the safer we are." Colonel Ryan Clark was studying the alien formations with professional interest. "Captain, I've noticed something. Their ships are positioned to contain us, but they're also positioned to protect us." "Protect us from what?" from anyone else who might show up. If another alien race tried to interfere, they'd have to go through the Zephyrian fleet first. Jake thought about that. They don't want anyone else to get their hands on us before they figure out what we are. Exactly. We've become valuable to them. Too valuable to destroy and too dangerous to ignore. As the 5th day ended, Tony Martinez finally had good news. Captain, drive repairs are almost complete. Maybe 12 more hours and we'll be ready to jump. Jake nodded, but he was already thinking about what came next. They could run, but running would answer all the aliens' questions about human strength. They could fight, but fighting was suicide against 300 warships. Or they could do something else entirely. Something that would end this crisis and ensure humanity's safety for years to come. Amy, Jake said quietly, prepare a single transmission. We're going to break our silence tomorrow. What should the message say, sir? Jake looked at the alien fleet surrounding them. 300 ships full of beings who had spent 5 days trying to understand what humans really were. Something that will make them very glad they didn't attack us, Jake said. On the 6th day, everything changed. Jake Morrison was reviewing Tony Martinez's final repair reports when Amy Sullivan suddenly looked up from her communication station with wide eyes. Captain, I'm detecting multiple jump signatures. Human jump signatures. Jake felt his heart race but kept his voice steady. How many ships? 3 vessels, sir. They're coming out of jump now. On the main screen, 3 ships appeared in flashes of white light. They were human vessels, sleek and modern like the Horizon. The UES Liberty, commanded by Captain Steve Johnson, took position directly opposite the Horizon. The UES Freedom under Captain Maria Santos moved to another point around the alien fleet. The research vessel UES Discovery, with Captain Alex Turner in command, completed a triangle formation with the other ships. Jake stared at the screen in amazement. How did they find us? Dr. Lisa Parker was working frantically at her science station. Captain, our jump drive malfunction sent out a distress beacon automatically. It took 6 days for the signal to reach Earth and for these ships to follow it here. The alien fleet was in chaos. Admiral Krex was shouting orders on his flagship while Emperor Thaxon demanded explanations. Suddenly, 1 human ship had become 4 human ships arranged in a perfect formation around the entire Zephyrian Grand Fleet. And just like the Horizon, the 3 new human ships went completely silent. Captain Steve Johnson sat on the bridge of the Liberty, a man in his 40s. With calm brown eyes and steady hands, he had received Jake Morrison's distress beacon and immediately gathered the fastest ships Earth could send. The journey had taken 6 days of hard jumping, but they had made it. Status report, Steve said to his crew. We're surrounded by about 300 alien warships, sir, his tactical officer reported. But they don't seem to be attacking. Good. Communications, any word from the Horizon? No, sir. Complete radio silence from all human vessels. Steve nodded. He and Jake had served together years ago, and he knew how his old friend's mind worked. If Jake was staying silent, there was a good reason for it. Follow the Horizon's lead, Steve ordered. Complete communications blackout. We say nothing to anyone. On the Freedom, Captain Maria Santos was having similar thoughts. Maria was a more tough woman with black hair and sharp eyes who had commanded exploration vessels for 20 years. She looked at the alien fleet surrounding them and made the same decision Steve had made. We stay quiet, and we watch, she told her crew. Whatever Captain Morrison is planning, we support it. Captain Alex Turner of the Discovery was the youngest of the 4 commanders, a man in his 30s with red hair and a quick mind. The Discovery was a science vessel, not a warship, but Alex had brought it anyway when he heard Jake was in trouble. Scan everything, Alex told his science team. I want to know everything about these aliens and their technology, but do it quietly. Emperor Thaxon was no longer calm. 4 human ships now sat in perfect formation around his grand fleet, and all of them were silent. The psychological pressure was enormous. His own crews were starting to panic. What does this mean? He demanded of his advisors. Admiral Krex looked pale. Your Majesty, this changes everything. They're not lost explorers. This is a coordinated operation. 4 ships against 300? Your Majesty, the formation they've taken is perfect. If they wanted to attack, they could hit us from 4 directions at once. No fleet can defend against that kind of assault. Dr. Quinn, the fleet psychologist, was studying readings from all 4 human ships. Your Majesty, the biological signs from all 4 vessels show the same pattern. Calm, alert, prepared, no fear whatsoever. How is that possible? I don't know. Your Majesty, either they have weapons we cannot imagine, or they are the most disciplined warriors in the galaxy. On the horizon, Jake was coordinating quietly with his fellow captains through coded light signals, a system they had learned in Earth's Naval Academy. No radio transmissions, no communications the aliens could intercept. Just simple flashes of light that meant understood, or ready, or wait. The 4 human captains had served together before. They knew each other's thinking and trusted each other completely. Without saying a word, they were coordinating a strategy that would either save them all or get them all killed. Drive repairs are complete, Tony Martinez reported from the engine room. We can jump anytime you're ready, Captain. Jake looked at the tactical display. 4 human ships, 300 alien ships, and a galaxy watching to see what would happen next. Not yet, Jake said quietly. We need to make a point first. The news of the 4 human ships had spread across the galaxy even faster than the original story. The mysterious species that had appeared from nowhere now had reinforcements. Military, experts on a dozen worlds tried to analyze the human formation and couldn't understand it. They're positioned to attack from all sides, one alien military analyst said on a news broadcast that Amy was monitoring. But they're also positioned to escape in 4 different directions. It's defensive and offensive at the same time. What kind of species thinks that way? Asked the news anchor. A very dangerous one. Dr. Nathan Brooks was moving through the horizon, checking on the crew's mental state. The arrival of the other human ships had improved morale enormously. They were no longer alone against impossible odds. How is everyone holding up? Jake asked when Nathan returned to the bridge. Much better, Captain. Knowing that Earth sent help has made all the difference. Kate Williams was coordinating with security chiefs on the other ships through light signals. If the aliens tried to board any of the human vessels, all 4 ships would respond together. Captain, Kate reported, all ships report defensive positions ready. If they try anything, they'll get more than they bargained for. Amy Sullivan was monitoring alien communications more carefully than ever. The chatter between alien ships was fascinating and frightening at the same time. The humans planned this, one alien voice said. They sent their first ship to scout our defenses, then brought in reinforcements when they were ready. But why only 4 ships? Another voice asked. If they can coordinate like this, why not send 100 ships? Maybe 4 ships are all they need. Amy played the recording for Jake. Captain, they think this was planned from the beginning. They think you were sent here on purpose to study their fleet. Jake smiled grimly. Let them think that. It's better than the truth. What's the truth, sir? The truth is that we're making this up as we go along, and we're just lucky that Earth sent help. But luck, Jake knew, only went so far. Eventually, the aliens would either attack or demand answers. He needed to end this crisis before someone made a mistake that got them all killed. Signal the other ships, Jake told Amy. Light signals only. Tell them to prepare for coordinated jump on my mark. Amy began flashing coded signals to the other human vessels. One by one, they flashed back their acknowledgement. Emperor Thaxon was meeting with his senior commanders in the throne room of the Eternal Glory. The mood was tense and confused. Recommendations? Thaxon asked. We could try to communicate with them again, Admiral Kreck suggested. They ignored us before. We could attack, suggested another admiral. Destroy them before they can escape. And if they have weapons we don't know about? Thaxon asked. What if destroying these 4 ships brings 100 more? Dr. Quinn spoke. Your Majesty, I believe they are waiting for something. All 4 ships show the same biological patterns. They are prepared to act, but they are waiting for the right moment. Waiting for what? Perhaps they are waiting for us to make the first move. This could be some kind of test. Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the alien fleet on his screen. 300 ships, thousands of crew members, all waiting to see what 4 human ships would do next. In a few hours, he would give them their answer. But first, he needed to make sure that answer would keep humanity safe for years to come. "Amy," he said quietly, "prepare a transmission to the alien emperor. We're going to break our silence in exactly 1 hour." "What should the message say, Captain?" Jake looked at his crew, brave men and women who had followed him into the unknown and stood firm when everything seemed hopeless. "Something that will make them very glad they waited to hear from us instead of attacking first."